Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring today's most pressing issues into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. The 2024 APEC Summit, taking place from November 10th to the 16th, is set to bring together leaders from across the Asia-Pacific region under the theme Empower, Include, and Grow. As the global economy faces new challenges, the summit will focus on enhancing trade and investment, fostering innovation and digitalization, promoting sustainable development, and addressing key environmental issues. Attention is focused on South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol's opportunity to strengthen the nation's position in the region and explore avenues for economic growth while contributing to the collective goals of APEC. For more on this, we're joined by Jorge Heine, former ambassador of Chile to China and research professor at Frederick S. Pardee School of Global Studies at Boston University. Welcome to the program, Ambassador.
Thank you.
And also joining us is Lee Jung, professor at the Division of International Studies at Koongju National University. Thank you for joining us, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
So let us start with Ambassador Heine. We are aware that APEC has been established to strengthen economic cooperation in the Asia-Pacific region. So in light of growing concerns about protectionism nowadays, what do you think is the role of APEC in this geopolitical landscape, and how important is the latest summit in addressing those concerns?
Well, I will say this. APEC has played a very important role in fostering trans-Pacific trade. It's been around now for some 35 years. The Asia-Pacific has been for a long time the most dynamic region in the world in terms of growth, in terms of trade, in terms of investment. And it brings together APEC brings together some of the largest economies in the world, nearly 40% of the world's GDP. So there is no question that it is an extremely important entity. Second, the APEC Summit brings together none other than the presidents of the United States and of China, the two most powerful leaders in the world. So if we're only for that, it immediately becomes one of the most significant summits, they're called meetings really, held this year. The third point I would like to underscore, though, in a bit of a more critical tone, is that the main purpose of APEC, which has been to foster free trade across the Pacific, in the course of the past 2 years, has been seriously hampered by the rise of protectionism that you alluded to. So this particular meeting in Lima, what is being emphasized are, I would say somewhat secondary issues like inclusivity and connectivity and, digital entities and so on, all of which are fine and they stand on their own, but they are not part of the central purpose of APEC, which is to foster free trade. There's been a long-standing project within APEC, which is the FTAAP, the Free Trade Area of the Asia-Pacific. And the viability study for the FTAAP was delivered in Lima. The last time APEC Summit, APEC meeting took place in Lima, that was in 2016. But not much progress has happened on that front. So my concern is that APEC is a bit stuck right now, and it needs a new impetus. And I hope we get some signals out of Lima on that, but I'm a bit skeptical that we'll see that.
Right, so let's hope to see a breakthrough on that front in this year's APEC Summit. Now, Ambassador, what are the main agenda items for discussion at this APEC Summit, and what's the background behind these issues?
Sure. Well, so for the reasons I said, the main issues that have been put front and center on the agenda are somewhat lateral issues, like sustainability, like inclusivity, like digital connectivity. And, they deserve attention, they are important, we need to work on them and so on. But I am concerned about this, somewhat static nature of free trade across the Pacific. Incredible as it may sound, studies indicate that this year and coming years, the Asia-Pacific region will grow at a lower rate than the world economy. Now, this was not the case in the past. In the past, APEC would always grow, APEC economies would grow at a higher rate than the world economy. Now, what does it indicate? There is a lack of dynamism. So this is something we ought to work on. And I would certainly hope that, some signals come out of Lima in that regard.
Right, let's hope for that. Now, also, let's bring in Professor Lim to the conversation. President Yoon, who landed in Peru today, is set to deliver a keynote speech on Friday. What key points do you expect President Yoon to emphasize regarding South Korea's role as a global pivotal state?
Sure. First of all, let me just, express my deep agreement with Ambassador Heine's comments, wonderful comments. Again, the APEC, this is a mechanism that can include many countries in this huge region, and then economically, politically, this is a very rare chance for the Asia Pacific countries to gather together with the United States and the China. However, as Ambassador Heine already pointed out, it's a kind of in a static situations, and mainly I think the main reason behind that is I feel like again the U.S.-China strategic rivalry because of intensified competition between these two superpower, all the kind of dynamics or atmosphere probably changed it in a little negative direction. However, South Korea, again, this country is one of the top trading countries in the world. And because of the openness of our country's economy, South Korea has been able to, again, to climb up the ladder of the development. So South Korea is one of, I'm pretty confident I can say this. Again, the South Korea is and should be a big advocate of the free trade. So having said that, I will guess, again, the President Yoon also will highlight the importance of the free trade and open economy. And especially we now have the election result from the United States. However, even though Mr. Trump or whoever going to be sitting in the White House and whatever those more like a protectionist policies can be made by the American president, but still, again, the APEC, the member states, we have 21 countries, and we can do more. So I'm pretty sure President Yoon can point out that point. And another point I'd like to highlight is, again, the security situation, especially North Korea. They now got involved in the war in Ukraine. So the security situations in Europe is now more directly intertwined with the security issues of the Asia Pacific or in the Pacific. So we definitely need a more understanding and support from global South countries or Asia Pacific countries. So I guess, again, the President Yoon will highlight that part as well.
Right. Thank you for pinpointing out for us the important topics. Now, this visit by President Yoon marks his first trip to South America since his inauguration. Ambassador Heine, what kind of role do South American countries then expect from South Korea as a global pivotal state?
Well, I will say this. In South America, and particularly in Chile, my own country, but also elsewhere, we have come to realize more and more that we are living in what has been called the Asian century, that Asia has been rising, that Asia has been growing. It's a very dynamic region, and that our progress will depend in years to come to a very significant degree to the ties we established with Asia. And Chile has been in the forefront of this. 40% of Chile's exports go to China, 60% of our exports go to Asia. And Chile, of course, has also been in the forefront in the sense of relations with South Korea. Chile and Korea signed the first Asia-Latin America free trade agreement as far back as 2002. President Kim Dae-jung and President Lagos played a very important role in that. So let me underscore that in this situation of growing protectionism in the United States and in Europe, Korea can play a very important role in fostering free trade in fostering greater exchanges between Latin America and Asia. Until now, there's been a lot of attention to the role of China and to the role of India in Latin America. And it seemed to me that there's much room for South Korea to play a much more high-profile role than it has until now. And I would hope that after this visit of the president, we will see additional visits and more projects going on. We are all great admirers of what South Korea has done, how it has emerged from being a very poor and underdeveloped country in the 1950s to the very significant industrial power it is today. And we see a lot of complementarities between the South Korean economy and our own economies.
Right, so let's look after those developments in Peru. Now, President Yoon Suk Yeol will also be announcing his commitment as the APEC chair for next year. Professor Lim, what kind of outcomes can we expect for the host country as the host country of APEC in 2025?
Well, I think we can suggest many important things. Again, as Ambassador Heine already pointed out, I know, again, the Chile was the first country who got the FDA with the South Korea. So, and some other, again, the Peru, of course, we got an FDA with the Peru as well. And we are pretty much interestingly watching how the CPTPP goes on, which is more like led by Japan. But anyhow, all this trade issue is definitely one of the top agenda. But not only just free trade. I think we should, and I think we will, add more important aspects in the upcoming 2025 APEC meeting in Gyeongju. For example, again, the climate change. I know in Latin America, for example, Brazil or many other countries will be very much, struggling with the growing intensity of the natural disaster because of the climate change, rapid climate change. So climate change, of course, now we have President-elect, again, Mr. Trump. He already mentioned that he will be withdrawing again from the Paris Agreement. Again, but still, there are many other countries who definitely want to make a commitment in the climate action. So definitely climate change can be one of another top agenda we can bring in again to the APEC, upcoming APEC. Or as the anchor, you pointed out at the beginning of the show, digitalization or all this AI or so-called the fourth industrial revolution related trend is accelerating. However, there are certainly some gaps between the very rich developed countries who got a technology or who got the capital power and some other countries who are, again, still, on the process of the developing. So we need to narrow down this gap, again, between the developed world and then less developed world in terms of digitalization as well, digital transformation or digital revolution. So those kind of things should be, and I think it can be, again, another important agenda in the upcoming APEC meeting. Or like a food security issue, cyber security issue. There are many other emerging security issues as well. And lastly, some more like a culture. Again, as we all know, Korean cultures, even the literature, are pretty much popular now worldwide. So those kind of more like a lighter culture agenda can be exchange kind of things, or tourism. Those things also, I think, can be very much freely discussed again between the member states in the Gyeongju. Gyeongju is a beautiful city for the tourism too. Mm-hmm.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor. Now, meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping has also arrived in Peru today to attend the APEC. Ambassador, given the potential for President Trump to reassert his pressure on China, can you tell us what are the implications of the growing tensions between the U.S. and China for APEC?
Sure. Well, to start with, there is no guarantee of this, but it's a rumor that's been floating around. But some people have mooted the possibility of the United States leaving APEC, given that APEC is committed to free trade. This is something President Trump does not believe in. As you know, the United States under President Trump left the Trans-Pacific Partnership in January of 2017. The United States negotiated the TPP for some 8 or 9 years, and it took a lot of doing. And then, in the first few days of his presidency, President Trump left it. So that's a possibility. I'm not saying it will happen, but it may very well happen. So there is much at stake here. And what I find interesting is that APEC embodies multilateralism. And obviously, again, this is something in which President Trump does not believe in. He believes in bilateral relations. He believes in unilateral action. So, there are lots of questions floating in the air in terms of the future commitment of the United States to APEC. Obviously, this stands in contrast to the Chinese position, which is basically in support of free trade and in support of multilateralism. So it seems to me that is a key issue that will, be present when we talk about U.S.-China relations in the context of APEC.
Right. Now, on the sidelines of the APEC summit, we expect President Yoon to sit down with President Xi Jinping for the first time in 2 years. Professor Lim, what do you expect from the talks?
Well, recently we got some positive signals from Beijing. For example, visa issue, it was like a kind of improved. So it looks like China also is trying to make the bilateral relationship with us, again, with the South Korea, more toward a more positive direction. Of course, Korea-China relations has been always, in a pretty friendly relationship, even though we did have some kind of, up and downs. But fundamentally speaking, China is our largest trading partner, and we do have so many dense, human networks between the two countries. So the relationship cannot be really hostile. So, through this bilateral meeting, bilateral summit between the President Yoon and President Xi, I think they will try to make the mood atmosphere more positive. And of course, that kind of leadership is necessary, again, for the security concerns as well. Again, even though the APEC per se, it is not about the security issues. Rather, again, it's more like socio-economic mechanism for the cooperation among the member states. However, still all these geopolitical, geostrategic risks are pretty great these days because of the two wars in Europe and Middle East. And again, the North Korea is now related to the war in Ukraine. So definitely China's role is I cannot emphasize enough how important China's role is. So I'm pretty sure the President Yoon is more than willing to just talk about this issue with the President Xi.
Right. And alongside China, South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol is also expected to sit down with Japan's new Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba. With Ishiba set to hold a series of bilateral talks on the stage, what should we focus in terms of outcomes?
Well, President again-elect Mr. Trump is coming in, and then President Biden is now leaving the White House. So I think this is the last chance for the three countries' leaders, again, the Biden, Yoon, and then Ishiba, to gather together again before Mr. Biden, President Biden is leaving White House. So definitely they will be interested in, again, how would you say, making sure, again, all this trilateral cooperation is very much important for the regional security, but not only just regional security, for global security. So I'm very sure they will be emphasizing the importance of the trilateral cooperation for security reasons, but not only for security reasons, for economics too. Again, the three countries' cooperative action is pretty much necessary and required in this region. So I guess, again, the three leaders will reconfirm, again, that the importance of the trilateral cooperation. And again, the Prime Minister Ishiba, his political position in the domestic political landscape is not that stable yet, but through this kind of diplomatic, events, hopefully, again, that his, the supporting rate can be more, upgraded too.
Right. Now, what about Ambassador Heine? Prime Minister Ishiba said to hold a series of talks with South Korea, U.S., China. What would you expect in terms of outcomes?
Well, I would expect some signals of, basically dialing down the tensions that we have seen in the region. If you look at that part of the world, we have some of the most, significant flashpoints in geopolitics. We look at, of course, the situation in North Korea for the reasons that have been mentioned. We look at the situation of Taiwan. We looked at the tensions in the South China Sea. So these are all, very significant issues. And it seems to me it is very important to dial down those tensions. We're living in a very troubled world, and it is important that leaders provide the right signals so that these flashpoints do not escalate and lead to major conflicts.
Right. So let's hope these kinds of discussions would pave the way in making a breakthrough to bring peace in the world. We have to wrap up our discussion, I'm afraid. Many thanks to Ambassador Heine and Professor Lim for sharing your expertise and time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Now, that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.